Hey everybody, welcome back. So Canada making a deal with China. Great for Scott Moe and Saskatchewan. Audis for Nova Scotia, the lobster, everything else. Canola, of course. Again, back to Scott Moe. But it's going to be a horrendous deal for Ontario and the automotive industry. No, no, it won't be. And we're going to go over his concerns, and we're going to tear apart every single one. Now, there are valid concerns, but what he brings up, it's like projection. He's doing half the stuff what he claims China's doing. So there's a saying like, if you're not doing what you're saying, your words are hollow. And that's Doug Ford's. So let's let him explain his concerns, and we're going to tear apart each one of them that a 5-year-old can do.
Did you get a call from Prime Minister Mark Carney before he made this decision in China?
Absolutely not. Didn't have any consultation. Didn't consult with any of the automakers. This is going to be terrible for not only just all the people of Ontario, but especially the auto manufacturers, the supply chain. We're letting China into a market that's going to have lower tariffs than our largest market, the U.S., and I don't think that's going to go over too well with President Trump, but it's going to hurt every single auto manufacturer, every single supply chain that has anything to do with the auto sector. This was not thought out properly. It wasn't consulted. It was a knee-jerk reaction as far as I'm concerned, and this is going to be a big, big problem.
But the Prime Minister is...
Talk about knee-jerk reaction. Are we serious here? Doug Ford, the man who spent $75 million of Ontario taxpayer money to do a advertisement to poke the bear Donald Trump, where everybody, even Mark Carney, knew the reaction Donald Trump would have. And he was consulted. Mark Carney said, don't do it. And Doug Ford went and did what he wanted anyways. So for him to have the audacity to say, well, he should have consulted with me. Why? You don't listen anyways. You don't have any constructive criticism. You're concerned about Donald Trump now. Weren't concerned about when you spent $75 million on an ad to poke the bear that made Mark Carney's job harder. So don't tell me your concerns about the U.S. or about the manufacturing of the auto sector here in Canada, because the Brampton plant closed down. Shipped 1,000 jobs to Windsor, which now those families have to relocate or do temporary housing, which is going to cost them more money. Okay. The Bright Drop EV van in Ingersoll shut right down. Where are you? Where was your concern? Okay. You're too busy playing with trains in Toronto that don't seem to be working very well, taking longer to build, than actually helping the automotive industry.
Simply reverting back to what was already in place in 2024. Why was it okay then, and why is it bad today?
Well, again, this is a Chinese government that doesn't respect labor laws, that doesn't respect making cars environmentally friendly, with they basically making it with coal. They're heavily subsidized, totally against all the auto workers here in Ontario and across the country. This is not a good situation.
Okay. Yes, China abuses their workers, 100%. No one will contest that. From what we understand of the deal, until the final details come out, 40,000 vehicles are allowed to come into Canada, okay, with a 6.4% tariff on it. They can't bring any more in until they start making investments in Canada, okay? No different than what was going on with Honda and Toyota and Hyundai and everything else, okay? You have to start making investments into the home country if you want to start selling more of your brands. That's a great deal, which will bring jobs. The jobs that we've lost to the U.S. and Mexico. where Doug Ford has not been able to save. Now, pollution? What are you talking about, pollution? Coal. We're like, yes, they use coal, but they're also number one in terms of renewable energy, in terms of battery technology, in terms of grid-tied storage batteries, okay? Solar, wind, and then the grid-tied storage battery for those off-peak times or peak times that the sun is not shining or the wind is not blowing. Where's our investments? Employees, again, talking about employees. Yes, China is got horrendous history in terms of abusing their employees. Hey, Doug Ford, what was your policy on return to work? You're forcing all those public sector workers back to the office. Where was your respect for them? They don't need to be there. They could have continued on their hybrids work schedule. Study after study after study has shown it works. They're more efficient. So where's your respect for the employee? So don't get on your high horse and say it's China. You're doing it in a different way. You're not abusing them, but you are forcing them back to an old, archaic way. Because you don't care. No different than the Chinese not caring about their employees in the factories.
For the auto sector as a whole.
So what is it going to mean, do you think, for the future of the auto sector in Canada? And you had mentioned earlier this week that it could jeopardize the talks with U.S. President Donald Trump. What effect do you think it'll have?
Well, first of all, anyone who buys these cars, they won't be allowed to go to the U.S. Cybersecurity. I call it the spy car that they're bringing in, and they won't be allowed to get over there. And it's going to tick off the Americans. 80% of our autos are going down there. I believe that speaking to the auto sector, speaking to the supply chain as well, they were coming up with a collaborative agreement, but now throw China in here for what? They aren't going to manufacture here. So it's just a terrible, terrible, miscalculated decision by the Prime Minister.
Have you had?
Again, until the physical details of the deal come out, right now, it's understanding that if they want to sell more than 40,000 vehicles, they have to start investing in Canada for manufacturing, okay? Not just opening up their own factories, but working with local factories and local companies that have the infrastructure here, okay? So they're going to have to, even though they don't want to. If they want this market, that's what they're going to have to do. Spy cars. I wish somebody would talk to him before he opens his mouth. By your logic, we would need to also ban every Apple phone, Android phone, the Lenovo ThinkPads, laptops, desktops, TVs, webcams, security cameras, everything that's made in China, you'd have to ban from Canada. It's all spyware. Okay? It's like your phone, Doug Ford, the one that the court's asking you to release because of all those phone calls that you're supposed to let the public know. You have to, how do you know China's not listening to you? Because again, that's made in China. So this idea that it's going to be a spyware, it's already here. If you believe that. Who cares about the US? Nobody does. Canadians don't care about the US right now. We're not going down to the US. Travel to the US is just plummeted right off a cliff. So who cares? If I had a Chinese car, I'm not going to the US, so I don't care what they have to say. Same with every other Canadian who has stopped going to the US. They're no longer our allies. Until the administration changes, they're just a big bully. And we don't want to spend our money on in a country that has a big bully. So that's not a problem of what the U.S. is going to think.
Had a conversation with him since, and
No.
if you do get on the phone with him, what are you going to say?
I'm going to say the exact same thing. What I said right here. This wasn't thought out. No consultation at all. He always preaches partnership. This is anything but a partnership, and it's totally unacceptable that he's bringing in Chinese-made cars and that are totally subsidized. They're going to undermine every auto manufacturer here.
But canola, it was a trade-off for canola. You can see where
Number one, I don't believe in pegging one part of the country against another, one sector versus the other. We should be taking care of both. And good friends, closest ally, Scott Moe, I think it's great. That's fine, along with our East Coast premiers on the lobster. But it's just really annihilated the auto sector.
Subsidized. Yeah, they're subsidized. No different than the auto manufacturers here in Ontario and North America. Between the EV grants, which I agree with, and the hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars of loans we've got and given them over the years. The bailout in 2007, 2008, okay? Where the federal governments had to write down $1 billion from Chrysler because they weren't paying that back under the Stephen Harper administration when they gave the bailout. Low interest, like below markets, payment terms or payment payback time has been extended. So we do subsidize, no different than the Chinese. But we don't see the benefit. We don't see cheaper vehicles. We see the corporations, the automotive industries take advantage. We take the risk if they don't do well. We're not getting any stock or anything like that. Okay. We're just subsidizing the jobs. Again, not cheaper vehicles. They move the manufacturing to Mexico, to parts of the US and everything else. Just like what Stellantis did for the Brampton plants. How they canceled the EV Bright Drop in Ingersoll. So don't tell me the Chinese are the only ones who subsidize, and that's why they're cheap. At least they're getting cheap vehicles. Also, talks about Mark Carney should have consulted him. Doesn't like how he doesn't want to talk bad about the rest of the country because it was for the canola oil. This coming from the guy who is threatening to take Crown Royal off the shelves. The Crown Royal that's being sold right now is manufactured in the distillery in Manitoba. The farms in Manitoba and surrounding province supply that distillery. And then he says if the company that makes, it's escaping me, if the company that makes Crown Royal doesn't bring back those 200 jobs in Ontario, then he's going to start taking Smirnoff Ice off the shelves as well. Again, manufactured in Quebec. So he does not care about any Canadian jobs except Ontario, okay? So this idea that he doesn't want to pin people against each other, he's just playing politics. He doesn't have a care in the world. He doesn't care. He just wants to win his battle. And he's losing on this battle, even though he's not really losing. Like, do you understand why he wasn't invited? Because you have to be invited on this trade deal or these trips to do trade deals. The concern right now was the canola industry because China's not buying it anymore. We're losing money. The automotive industry, China's not hurting the automotive industry. The US is hurting the automotive industry. So why would we bring Doug Ford when China is not the enemy that's hurting our automotive industry? The concern was the canola. That's why he brought him, Scott Moe, along. Doug Ford would be as useless as tits on the bull. No need for him. Now, Mark Carney is making sure, again, we'll find out the details, that if China wants to continue selling their products, their cars in Canada, they will have to open up manufacturing. That's the deal. Now, Doug Ford doesn't want to give him credit because then Ontarians are going to know that Doug Ford has done nothing for them. He's lost manufacturing to the U.S. He's spent $75 million to poke the bear and made Mark Carney's job harder. He's playing with trains like the Toronto subway that are not working. He's got scandals coming up with the phone, the green belts, the issue he's having now with the funds for the trades and skills funding, that the company that was taking the majority of it is being investigated. I think they're going to find out that somebody was friends. So he's not a good leader, and everything's coming to the surface. And Ontarians, another loss for Doug Ford in terms of him not showing he saved Ontario. Again, too busy playing with trains. So all these whining concerns are not valid. If he truly cared about Ontario and the workers, what he should be doing is working with Mark Carney to try to convince the Swedish government or the Swedish company sub for bringing the manufacturing of the Gripen jet. A lot of skilled trades here. So whatever we're going to lose to the U.S. and Donald Trump's hissy fit and bring all the manufacturing back, we'll make up with the military manufacturing of those jets. We haven't heard a word on that. Is he fighting? Is he lobbying Mark Carney? Is he calling his office saying, what can we do to make a deal with Saab to bring that here? Or any other procurement for military? Because Canada's going to be spending a lot more in military to make up for what we haven't been doing for over the years, and to uphold the agreements we have with other trade partners and other allies. He's like narrow-minded, blinders. I don't know if he just doesn't want to do the work. He's lazy, whatever. But this is lazy. This is lazy. There's so many other things he could have been doing months ago, like long time ago, because he knows the automotive manufacturing industry. Even if they didn't make a deal with China, the industry's hurting because Trump is destroying it. So he should have been working on a resolution as we speak. There already should be plans coming to fruition. Too busy pouring out Crown Royal and threatening to take it off the shelves to hurt Canadian jobs. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Let me know what you think. What success Doug Ford has done for Ontario, if any. And we'll talk later. Take care.